Our survivor today, I'm sure, is familiar to many of you who've been here before. Enthusiastic, patriotic, and very empathetic toward his fallen brethren. He was right in the middle of the attack on Pearl Harbor, as he'll let you know. He was a member of the Naval Aerial Patrol Squadron, VP-23. I humbly introduce to you Pearl Harbor survivor Earl Chuck Kohler.
Oh. Please be seated. We don't have much time here. It's only going to give me 5 minutes. I could use up 45. Anyway, I just want Ted Clements and all the rest of you people who were involved in that beacon restoration to know what it means to me. When they lifted that beacon up off the top of that building, to me, it was like they were lifting our sunken shipmates up off the bottom of the harbor to be forever honored and remembered. And that beacon will help us do that. To me, it feels like it gives me a way to reach back across the years and connect once again with over 2,400 of my sunken shipmates and fallen comrades. Shortly after that first bomb fell that morning, sending bomb fragments, explosion debris, window glass crashing into the back of my head, I was ordered by the duty officer, or I assumed it was the duty officer, to follow them. I thought, oh boy, we're going to get some ammunition, guns, we're going to do something about this. But instead, they went out the other way, went out there somewhere to the other end of the hangar, jumped into an unfilled construction ditch. I followed, jumped in after them. I hit the bottom of that ditch, and I looked up, and I recognized the rating badge of an aviation ordnanceman. You the duty ordnanceman, yeah. You got a key for the ammo shack, yeah. Let's go get some guns and ammo and shoot these blankety blanks, So I hadn't much more than hit the bottom of that ditch, and I and the ordnanceman were on the way up out of the ditch. Somebody, I suppose the duty officer, orders us to get back in the ditch, get back in the ditch. I don't want to be in that ditch. We're military men. We should be putting up a defense. We shouldn't be here in this ditch. Besides, I know this is the beginning of that war that they've been talking about, we've been preparing for. And I'm from a proud family, and I damn well know that if I'm going to lose my life in this battle or any other battle of this war, I would want my family and my country to know that I died fighting, not hiding. We continued about that ditch. Then the duty officer, I suppose, shouted, "Get back in that ditch or I'll put you on report for disobeying a direct order." Hell's bells. Talk about being between a rock and a hard spot. These guys in these airplanes are machine gunning and dropping bombs, trying to kill as many of us as they could. And our own duty officer hiding here in the ditch is threatening us with military discipline for when to defend ourselves. I just totally disregarded those threats. That ordnanceman and I left that ditch. We made it to the ammo shack. He unlocked the door, let us delve in. I'm right behind him. "What do you want?" "Give me a 50 caliber machine gun. I'm a recent farm boy. I'm not used to firing machine guns. But boy, I'll tell you, that thing looked to me like a cannon without wheels, But I took it as best I could. Most likely cradled it in my arms. I wasn't very big at the time. Turned, started for the door. By now, an individual that was much taller than I and huskier built, who must have figured they didn't want to be in that ditch either, to follow us to the ammo shack. Anyway, he was just coming in the door. I handed that machine gun to him. I said, "Here, take it to the BBY Park in front of 23 Singer. I'll get the ammo." He looked a bit surprised, but he took a turn out the door. When I turned around, and there again, I'm so grateful for that aviation ordnanceman, because without his cooperation, none of this defense that we got going there at the end of Ford Island would have occurred. Anyway, when I turned around, he was just setting 2 canisters of ammo up on the counter. I tell you, I beat the guy with the gun to the airplane with ammunition. He had a heavier load than I did. We were able to get that ammunition inside that airplane. I set the ammunition canisters down under the gun, flipped the lid open, come up the end of the belt, ready to load, thinking he had the breech open. But he was just standing there staring skyward. I looked up, and here comes another one of those guys in a power dive. Same old blinking, flashing lights, big old bomb hanger in the bottom. What I thought was flashing lights really was machine gun muzzle flashes and those popping, buzzing, and whizzing sounds that I had heard earlier when I was standing outside the hangar door with those machine gun bullets striking and ricocheting off the concrete apron and off that steel hangar door right behind me, you know. But I wasn't farm boy, never been to war before. I didn't recognize them for what they were. I was more afraid of that officer putting me on report that day than I was what the tacting forces were doing. How am I doing for time? He said I had 5 minutes. 1 minute left. I'm all through. Oh, okay. Thank you. Anyway, we got that ammunition and machine gun in there, and I had done this just as he had swung that mortar gun out and locking it, you know. He fired on the first airplane that was in a power dive after we got that gun set up. It came in, you know, with those blinking, flashing lights. Now I'm only hearing popping sound, which I was later told were some of those bullets passing through the fuselage of that airplane we were in. And big old bomb hanging on the bottom, you know, anyway. But I could tell by the way he was firing that he wasn't going to hit anything because those tracer bullets flew off harmlessly through empty space somewhere near where that airplane had once been. I think that's when my country boy hunter instinct kicked into gear. I used to shoot jackrabbits on the run, Chinese ringneck pheasants on the fly. Nah, not with a shotgun, with a .22 caliber rifle. I knew that you had to aim and put that bullet where the target would be when the two of them came together. I shouted, "Let me get the next one." He let that gun down, stepped aside. I brought it back up to firing position. Just as I did, here comes another one of those airplanes in a power dive. Boy, I got a bead in the lead. And I started to fire. I kept leading and firing all the while that airplane came down, completed its power dive, pulled out into over level flight and passed just overhead. I watched those tracer bullets fly through the air. It looked like every one of them went right into that round opening in front of that old radial engine Bell dive bomber, then stitch to stitch right down the bottom of the fuselage. Now, I know that there are those of you here today who know and remember that following each one of those tracer bullets, there were 4 regular bullets. Another tracer, 4 more regular bullets. So I know here and I know here that I did some damage to that aircraft. But you're not going to be watching him because he's going away. He's no longer a threat. You better be looking for the next one that's coming at you. I bring that gun back down and I'm looking for another one in a power dive, but I don't see it. Oh, there's one out over the channel, maybe 2 city blocks away. He's not on a power dive, but a steep banking and descending left turn as though he's getting ready to make another machine gun run on us. Because he's in that banking turn, I can see the cockpit 6 or 8 feet behind the front of that airplane. I figure at that distance and at that speed, if I use the front of that airplane as my aiming point, I'm going to get some rounds into the fuselage, maybe even into the cockpit. And believe you me, if you can get a couple of these bouncing around inside that cockpit with that pilot, you are going to give him something else to think about besides coming back and machine gunning you a second time. I maintained that lead, squeezed the trigger. Brrr. I don't think I got off more than about 6 or 8 rounds, but I saw at least 2 of those tracer bullets disappear into the fuselage of that airplane just forward of the cockpit. And when they did, that airplane did an abrupt rolling right turn and was gone from my field of fire. 50 years later, I was listening to a news broadcast from Pearl Harbor. It seems that year that they had made a great effort to locate as many of those pilots as they possibly could who had participated in that raid, who had survived the war, who were physically able to travel, and they had brought them back to Pearl Harbor for that anniversary. They were interviewing them. They asked this one pilot, "What part did you play in that raid?" He said, listen carefully to this now. He said, "I was the lead pilot of a group of 9 aircraft. Our assigned targets were the airplanes and the hangars on Ford Island. That's where I was." He said, "When I went in for my first run, machine gun, dropped my bomb, I didn't see a soul. It was like the whole island was asleep." But he said, "We were surprised how fast they reacted, because by the time I had came around and was lining up for a second machine gun run, there was so much fire coming up that I turned and went elsewhere." Oh, I would love to talk to him. That's the guy that dropped the very first bomb to fall at Pearl Harbor that morning. That's the guy that dropped the bomb that got to me physically, spilled to my blood. Most likely the very first blood to fall at Pearl Harbor that morning. But in spite of that, I like to think that I'm the guy that got to him mentally with that on-target 50 caliber machine gun fire and changed his mind about coming back and machine gunning us a second time. Thank you. I think I've used up my time, haven't I? Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Very good. Stay here. Stay. Well, come right over here, Chuck. With a presentation to Chuck, here is Concord City Councilwoman Laura Hoffmeister.
Thank you very much. I'll be very brief because I know this is a tight timeline here, but as mayor for the last 2 years in Concord, we rotated. I get the opportunity to select community members for a community service award for the last 2 years. And I did one Tuesday night for one member in our community for one of the years. And tonight, I'd like to present Chuck Kohler with the Concord's Mayor's Community Service Award for all of your work and your keeping, lest we never forget, alive for all of us to know and continue to remember the importance of Pearl Harbor and what that means. And you just heard the wonderful story he just told of the history, actually, that he lived. You can see how that just brings it alive to all of us today. So, Chuck, in recognition of your dedicated service to the community and keeping the stories and the history alive of Pearl Harbor for all of us that weren't there in the generations to come, thank you so very, very much. I also have a very long proclamation, and I'm going to read every word just as fast as you just rattled it all off. No, I won't. But it's a very long proclamation, talks about all of Chuck's wonderful accomplishments, but at the end of this, not only are we celebrating today Pearl Harbor Day here in the community, but also Chuck Kohler Day. So this is for you.
Here these good people are presenting me with these awards, and all I've done here is talked. Out there at Pearl Harbor, I risked my life. I put myself right out there as an open target, and all I got was a threat of military discipline.